you to Mark and Katrina and the Nation and Fair America. Are there any MoveOn members here? Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. I'm just going to email my remarks. No, thank you, because I think it's important before we talk about the future to talk for a moment about the past, because I think this is a moment where it would be easy to do a little bit of revisionist history. And someone said, the other day, it's important to remember that Barack Obama didn't create the movement. The movement created the space for Barack Obama. And I think that's really true. When you remember back to 2001 and 2002, it was a very scary time in this country to speak out. I mean, it's hard to actually fully remember what it was like. But you had people burning Dixie Chicks albums. It's just this crazy country that it's hard to recognize anymore. And the leaders in Washington were absolutely unwilling or unable to stand up to the Bush presidency, to Karl Rove. And it took people out in the country realizing that if they didn't stand up, that this was going to get a lot worse, to start to turn things around. And that was a lot of the people in this room, and that was millions of people all across the country who kind of took things into their own hands and decided that it was up to us to actually start to turn the country around. And it's sort of remarkable. I think it's felt like a very long, for me anyway, it felt like a long time. It's been 7 years of pushing and pushing and pushing. But when you look at the shift that we've had from 2002 to 2008, it's pretty remarkable, and it's because people didn't wait for the leaders in Washington, because they didn't wait for someone to kind of come and save us, but actually because because we all rolled up our sleeves and did the work to make that possible. And I think that's really important to remember as we go forward, because if we think that handing the baton to Barack Obama and saying it's your turn now is the solution to our problems, we've missed the lesson of this last 8 years. We really have, and it would be a tragic thing. The lesson of the last 8 years is we can't wait for any one individual to deliver change. It's something that we all have to do together. So now we're here. We're in the Obama era. I was telling someone the other day, if you had told me even 3 years ago that in 2008, we would have a black president who voted against the war, who thinks community organizing is really cool and made it a buzzword in the whole country. I would have wanted to know what you were smoking. And yet here we are. And it's this exciting moment. I think a lot of us are filled with a lot of hope about what can come. But I actually want to talk about another piece of this moment, which is for me, and I think for a lot of us probably, we've been very focused on the election, on the presidency, and meanwhile, there's our country is in a very deep economic crisis, and I think as we think about the kind of change that we're going through, and we think about what it means for our movement, I think we have to recognize that may be as significant a challenge, as significant a change in the landscape as having Barack Obama as our president. This is a country right now that is, and on the scary side, is a country that's losing literally hundreds of thousands of jobs a week right now. Hundreds of thousands of jobs a week. And on the opportunity side, does anyone in the room know how many $1 billion in education funding is in the stimulus? Anyone? So it's $150 billion. It's the biggest investment in education in the history of the country. If you remember that whole fight about the $87 billion for Iraq, this is like twice that. And I actually barely noticed it. That's how big the kind of opportunity is that we have, that you could actually invest $150 billion in education in this country, and people would barely even notice because there's so much else going on. That's kind of the opportunity that we have. But I think we have to remember that out there in the country, people are feeling hopeful about Barack Obama, but they're also very scared. And we have to remember what the psychology of all of us is. demographers and psychologists call survival value. It's basically, I have to make sure that my family's okay before I worry about anyone else. This is just a natural thing, and there's actually really interesting studies about how if you remind people that they're gonna die, basically, they become more conservative on a whole host of issues. It's just it's an inherent psychological thing. And so I think we have to remember that if you look at history in moments like this, it does not necessarily mean that we're in, that a progressive panacea of new programs and new government is necessary. And in fact, often what happens is people get scared. Right-wing politicians come along and demagogue that fear. And you can see a very quick move into a demagogic, Rudy Giuliani style law and order resurgent Republican Party. And I don't want to, it's only 7 days of Obama, so I don't want to bum anyone out. But I think it's important to remember that. And then I think it's also important to remember that fear is contagious, but hope is actually also contagious. And, it passes through human contact. It passes through people talking to other people. And actually, with all love and respect for our friends who are putting on the panel on the media is not a good mechanism in general, for making people feel like a sense of common purpose, of common struggle, a sense that that we can do this together. The best way to do that is person to person, neighbor to neighbor. And so I think as we look at this moment, there's a lot of a lot of us are going to be facing Washington and are going to be analyzing what comes out of the White House and having our disagreements with Barack Obama, and also having our moments of, oh my God, he's actually closed Guantanamo or whatever the great thing of the day is. But I think we actually need to be equally focused, maybe more focused, on what's going on outside of Washington, and making sure that we are organizing like we've never organized before, to create the kind of space that will allow Barack Obama to be a transformative leader. I think that's our task right now, is to reach out to our neighbors and reach out to our friends, and to kind of continue this campaign that was so transformative in the political space, to continue that now that Barack Obama's been elected. Because I think unless we create that sense of hope, and that sense that just like people rolled up their sleeves and turned the country around, and just like people rolled up their sleeves and elected Barack Obama, we can all actually get ourselves out of this mess. I think Barack Obama could win this. He needs us. And I think that's the project right now. And I think it's not about, it's not nearly about examining policy statements as much as it is about doing the work, continuing